My parents ordered lobster and champagne at a luxury restaurant, and then casually expected me to pick up the bill. The bill for $1,847.32 sat on the white tablecloth, gleaming under the fancy restaurant lights. My parents, eyes flushed with wine and entitlement, stared at me with that familiar, expectant smile. "You're treating us tonight, right, son? After all, we raised you." My mother nodded, already sipping her third glass of champagne. But the moment I stood up, pulled out my wallet, and placed a single $20 bill on that table, exact change for my Caesar salad and water, saying loud enough for nearby tables to hear, "That covers my meal. Yours is your responsibility," I knew their smiles were about to vanish. And so was my lifelong obligation. I had driven 40 minutes through downtown Chicago traffic on a Tuesday evening because my mother called that afternoon, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. "Leandro, honey, we haven't seen you in months. Your father and I want to take you to dinner. Just family time." Something in her tone should have warned me. My parents never wanted just family time without an agenda. But I'd been working 70-hour weeks on a product launch, and guilt gnawed at me. Maybe they genuinely missed me. Maybe I was being paranoid about their motives after years of being their personal ATM. The first red flag appeared when I arrived at the restaurant entrance. Morton's wasn't a casual family dinner spot. This was where executives celebrated seven-figure deals, where proposals happened under crystal chandeliers. My parents stood outside, my father in a suit I'd never seen before, my mother wearing new jewelry that caught the streetlight. "Surprise!" my mother chirped. "We decided to make tonight special. You work so hard. You deserve a nice meal." My sister, Fabiana, emerged from behind them, phone already out, recording. "Isn't this sweet? Mom and Dad wanted to celebrate your promotion." I hadn't gotten a promotion. I hadn't told them anything about work in months, because every conversation became an interrogation about my salary. Inside, the host guided us to a prominent table near the center of the dining room. My father ordered cocktails before I'd even opened my menu. My mother began recounting embellished stories about my childhood to a server who clearly just wanted to take our order and leave. Fabiana kept angling her phone, recording everything like we were filming a reality show. "Aren't you going to get a drink, Leandro?" my father asked, his martini already half finished. "Water's fine," I replied, scanning the menu prices with growing dread. Appetizers started at $38. "Oh, come on," my mother cooed. "Don't be cheap. This is a celebration." That word, cheap, had been their weapon against me since I graduated college and got my first real paycheck. Every time I declined to fund their restaurant bills, vacation plans, or shopping sprees, I was being cheap. When I refused to co-sign a car loan for Fabiana 3 years ago, I was selfish and cheap. When I said I couldn't loan them $5,000 for emergency home repairs that turned out to be a cruise, I was ungrateful and cheap. My parents had perfected the art of financial manipulation wrapped in family obligation. The server returned for dinner orders. I ordered a Caesar salad, the cheapest entree option. My father's face twitched with disapproval. Then he turned to the server with an expansive gesture. "I'll have the 40 ounces Wagyu ribeye, medium rare. And she'll have the twin lobster tails with the truffle butter." My mother beamed. "Oh, and we should get champagne. Bring us your Veuve Clicquot." The server hesitated, glancing at me. "The 2014 vintage? Perfect." My father confirmed without checking the price. After the server left, he leaned back with satisfaction. "You only live once, right?" Fabiana ordered salmon that cost $68 and 2 glasses of wine. Throughout the meal, my parents performed their usual theater, asking about my job in ways designed to extract salary information, mentioning bills they were struggling with, praising my success while highlighting their sacrifices. "We could have retired by now if we hadn't put you kids through college," my father said, cutting into his steak. This was a lie. I'd paid for my own college through scholarships, loans, and working 3 jobs. They'd contributed maybe $5,000 total across 4 years, which they mentioned constantly as if they'd funded Harvard. "Remember when we bought you that laptop for graduation?" my mother added. "That was $1,500 we really couldn't afford." Another lie. The laptop cost $600 on sale, and they'd made me pay them back over 6 months by calling it a loan. But every family dinner for the past 6 years, that laptop became more expensive and their sacrifice more heroic. I'd learned to stay quiet during these rewritings of history. Arguing only prolonged the manipulation. Dessert arrived. 3 orders of chocolate soufflé at $18 each. Plus after-dinner drinks I definitely hadn't ordered. My father swirled his cognac, gaze calculating. "You know, son, your mother and I have been talking. We're thinking about buying a condo in Florida. Great investment opportunity. We'd only need about $20,000 for the down payment. There it was. The real reason for this dinner. Not family bonding. Not celebration. Just another scheme to extract money from their son who'd committed the crime of becoming financially stable. We were hoping you could help us out, my mother continued. We'd pay you back, of course, with interest. They'd said those exact words 4 years ago when they needed $8,000 for emergency dental work. I'd never seen a penny back. The loan became a gift they occasionally thanked me for, then later pretended never happened when they needed more money. You're making good money now, my father pressed. What's $20,000 to you? To us, it's our retirement dream. The server placed the leather bill holder at the center of our table. Nobody reached for it. My father continued describing the Florida condo. Ocean views, golf course access, investment potential. My mother nodded along, occasionally dabbing her mouth with the cloth napkin. Fabiana had finally put down her phone, watching me with an expression I recognized from childhood. She knew what was coming and wanted a front row seat to my obligatory compliance. I pulled the bill holder toward me and opened it. The itemized receipt told the story of their evening. Wagyu steak, $72. Twin lobster tails, $89. Champagne, $412. Multiple cocktails, wine, appetizers they'd ordered while I was in the restroom. Tax and suggested gratuity brought the total to $1,847.32. For context, my entire monthly grocery budget was $400. This single meal cost more than my rent. My father's hand moved across the table, gently pushing the bill holder closer to me. The gesture was practiced, casual, as if we'd rehearsed this choreography. In a way, we had. This exact scene had played out dozens of times over 6 years. Different restaurants, same expectation. I would see the bill, my stomach would not. I would calculate how this would damage my carefully maintained budget. And then I would pay. Because family. Because obligation. Because the alternative was being labeled cheap, selfish, ungrateful. So, about that Florida condo, my father resumed as if my paying this obscene bill was already decided. We found a realtor down in Naples. Beautiful area. You should come visit once we're settled. Bring that girlfriend of yours. What's her name? I didn't have a girlfriend. I'd broken up with Jennifer 8 months ago. Partly because my parents had made her so uncomfortable during the one dinner we'd shared. They'd spent the entire evening asking about her parents' finances and suggesting we should have children soon because grandchildren would give us something to live for. My mother reached across the table to pat my hand. Her fingers were cold from holding the champagne glass. You've always been such a good son, Leandro. Not like some children who abandon their parents. Your cousin Raphael hasn't spoken to his mother in 2 years. Can you imagine? This was another tactic, the comparison to worse children, the reminder that I should be grateful for my own willingness to be exploited. But something had shifted inside me during the appetizer course. Maybe it was watching my father order the most expensive steak without hesitation. Maybe it was the champagne selection, the casual $400 decision made with my money. Maybe it was Fabiana recording everything like I was a performing animal. Or maybe it was 6 years of accumulated resentment finally reaching critical mass. Whatever the reason, I felt a clarity I'd never experienced in their presence before. I thought about my apartment, a modest one-bedroom in a decent neighborhood. I'd furnished it carefully over 3 years, saving for each piece. My couch had cost $200 from a warehouse sale. My desk was assembled IKEA. I drove a 7-year-old Honda with 140,000 miles because I was saving for a house down payment. Every dollar I earned was allocated, budgeted, planned. Meanwhile, my parents lived in a house they'd refinanced 4 times, drove a BMW they leased at $700 monthly, and took 2 vacations yearly while claiming poverty whenever I was around. The disconnect had always bothered me, but I'd suppressed the logical questions. If they were struggling, why the luxury car? If they needed my money, where did their own income go? My father still worked as an insurance adjuster, making $70,000 annually. My mother did part-time bookkeeping. Combined, they earned more than I did. Yet somehow, I was their financial safety net, their emergency fund, their retirement plan. Earth to Leandro, Fabiana said, waving her hand in front of my face. Did you hear, Dad? They need an answer about the condo soon. The market's competitive. I looked at my sister, 31 years old, living rent-free in my parents' basement, working sporadically as a social media consultant that generated maybe $10,000 yearly. She'd never paid for a family dinner in her life. She'd never been expected to. That responsibility fell solely to me. The responsible one. The success story. The cash machine. How much is in your savings now? My father asked suddenly. The question was intrusive, inappropriate, but he asked it with the casual entitlement of someone who'd long ago stopped seeing boundaries. "That's private," I replied. His expression flickered. Surprised that I declined to answer. Then irritation. "We're family. Nothing's private. Your mother and I need to know you're being financially responsible. Making good decisions." The irony was suffocating. A couple at the next table glanced over, sensing tension. My mother noticed and immediately deployed her public-facing persona. Warm smile, light laugh. "Of course, you're responsible, honey. We taught you well. That's why we know you can help us with this opportunity." She made the condo sound like I was being offered a privilege, the privilege of funding their retirement fantasy while I delayed my own future. The server returned, refilling water glasses, clearly hoping someone would hand over payment so they could close out our table. My father intercepted them. "Another cognac, please. Make it a double." He winked at me. "Celebrating family tonight." The server looked uncomfortable but nodded, disappearing toward the bar. That cognac would add another $30 to the bill I was expected to pay. I pulled out my phone, opening my banking app. My checking account showed $3,247. My savings account, the one they just asked about, showed $34,890. I'd been saving for 4 years toward a house down payment. Every bonus, every tax refund, every dollar I could spare went into that account. It represented discipline, sacrifice, delayed gratification. It represented a future where I owned something, built something, escaped the cycle of renting. That money was my exit strategy from living paycheck to paycheck. And my parents wanted $20,000 of it for a condo they'd likely lose to foreclosure within 3 years based on their financial history. "Well, my father prompted, can you help us or not?" The question hung in the air like smoke. I could feel Fabiana's eyes on me, my mother's expectant smile, my father's barely concealed impatience. This was the moment they'd orchestrated this entire evening toward. The expensive meal was theater, a demonstration of the lifestyle they wanted, a preview of what my money could provide them. They'd gotten dressed up, made reservations at Morton's, ordered without restraint, all confident that I would, as always, comply. The server returned with my father's double cognac. That made 4 drinks for him, easily over $100 in alcohol alone. He raised the glass toward me in a mock toast. "To family," he said. "To taking care of each other." I set my phone face down on the table and looked at each of them in turn. My father waiting for confirmation of my compliance. My mother already mentally decorating the Florida condo. Fabiana, phone angled to capture whatever came next. The server hovering nearby, hoping for resolution. "No," I said. The word emerged quieter than intended, but clear. My father's cognac glass paused mid-air. "What?" My mother's smile remained fixed, not yet processing. I said, "No. I'm not giving you $20,000 for a condo. I'm not giving you anything." The silence at our table created a vacuum that seemed to pull attention from surrounding diners. My father set down his glass with excessive care, the kind of deliberate movement that preceded an explosion. "Excuse me?" His voice carried that warning tone I'd learned to fear in childhood. But I wasn't a child anymore. I was a 28-year-old man who'd been subsidizing his parents' irresponsibility for 6 years. "You heard me. No. I'm not funding your retirement fantasy while I'm still trying to build my own life." The words felt foreign in my mouth, a language I'd never been allowed to speak. My mother's face transformed from confusion to wounded disbelief. "After everything we've done for you," her voice climbed in volume. "We sacrificed everything to raise you. We gave you everything. You didn't, though," I replied, surprised by my own steadiness. "I put myself through college. I got scholarships. I worked 3 jobs. You contributed $5,000 over 4 years and act like you funded Harvard. You bought me a $600 laptop on sale and somehow it becomes $1,500 every time you mention it. You've rewritten history so many times, you actually believe your own lies." My father's face darkened to crimson. "How dare you speak to your mother that way? Apologize right now." But I was done apologizing for naming reality. 4 years ago, you needed $8,000 for emergency dental work. I gave it to you. Never saw a penny back. 2 years ago, you needed $5,000 for home repairs that turned out to be a cruise. Last year, it was $3,000 for property taxes you'd already paid. Every emergency is actually something else. Every loan becomes a gift you later pretend never happened. Fabiana leaned forward, phone still recording. "You're being incredibly selfish right now. Mom and Dad deserve to enjoy their retirement." I turned to my sister. "What retirement? Dad's 56. He's not retiring. And even if he were, his retirement isn't my financial responsibility. I'm 28. I'm supposed to be building my own life, not funding theirs. This is how you repay us? My mother's eyes brimmed with theatrical tears. We give you life, raise you, love you, and this is the gratitude we get? The manipulation was so transparent, I almost laughed. Gratitude? You want gratitude? I've paid for literally dozens of meals like this. I've given you over $30,000 in the past 6 years. $30,000? That's more than you spent on my entire childhood. When does the debt get paid? When am I allowed to live my own life without being your emergency fund? My father stood abruptly, chairs scraping against hardwood. Lower your voice. People are staring. They were staring. A server had stopped mid-service at a nearby table. The couple who'd glanced over earlier were fully watching now. But I didn't care anymore about maintaining their public image. Let them stare. Maybe they should know what kind of parents emotionally blackmail their son into funding their lifestyle while he drives a 15-year-old car and lives in a one-bedroom apartment. You make good money. My father hissed, leaning over the table. Don't act like you're struggling. You're just selfish, just like you've always been. We should have known when you were 8 years old, crying because we made you share your toys with Fabiana. Selfish then, selfish now. The absurdity of comparing childhood toy sharing to refusing to fund a Florida condo would have been funny if it weren't so perfectly representative of their worldview. Every boundary I set became evidence of moral failure. Every no was reframed as selfishness rather than self-preservation. I make $78,000 a year, I said, stating my actual salary for the first time ever in their presence. After taxes, that's about $54,000. Rent is $1,600 monthly. That's $19,200 yearly. Car, insurance, utilities, food, student loans. I have maybe $15,000 discretionary annually. You're asking for more than an entire year of discretionary income for a condo you'll probably lose because you've never maintained financial stability for more than 18 months. My mother gasped like I'd physically struck her. How can you say such cruel things? We're your parents. You're supposed to love us. I do love you, I replied, and realized with surprise that it was true, despite everything. But love doesn't mean letting you destroy my financial future. Love doesn't mean enabling your refusal to live within your means. Love doesn't mean sacrificing my life so you can maintain an unsustainable lifestyle. Fabiana jumped in, her voice rising. You think you're better than us because you have some office job and a savings account? You think that makes you superior? Actually, I didn't think I was superior. I thought I was tired. Tired of being the responsible one. Tired of being punished for having discipline they lacked. Tired of watching them make terrible financial decisions and then expecting me to cushion the consequences. The server approached cautiously, clearly wanting to resolve our table situation. My father intercepted them with false warmth. Just a small family disagreement. Nothing to worry about. My son here is going to take care of the bill momentarily. The presumption in that statement, the absolute certainty that despite my refusal, I would ultimately comply, crystallized something in me. I reached for the bill holder, and my mother's face transformed back to hopeful relief. She actually believed my rebellion was performance, that ultimately I would do what I'd always done. I opened the holder, looked at the total one more time, then did something I'd been planning since the appetizer course. I pulled out my wallet and extracted a single $20 bill. I placed it on the bill with deliberate precision. This covers my Caesar salad and water. Tax and tip included. The rest is your responsibility. I stood, pushing my chair back. My father's mouth opened, but no sound emerged. My mother stared at the $20 bill like it was a snake. Fabiana's phone captured everything. Their shock, their disbelief, their dawning realization that I was serious. You can't just leave. My father finally managed. You can't stick us with this bill. I looked at him directly. Why not? You ordered it. You chose the Wagyu. You chose the $400 champagne. You chose every expensive item knowing exactly what you were doing. This isn't my bill. It's yours. My mother's tears were real now. Not theatrical. We don't have $1,800. You know we don't. You're going to humiliate us in front of all these people. The emotional hostage situation was familiar, but for the first time, I didn't feel its pull. Then you shouldn't have ordered $1,800 worth of food and alcohol. That's called living within your means. Maybe try it. I walked away from the table, heading toward the exit. Behind me, I heard my father's voice rising, calling me ungrateful, selfish, a disappointment. My mother was crying louder now, making sure the entire restaurant knew she was the victim of a cruel son. Fabiana shouted something about family loyalty, but I kept walking, pushed through the heavy wooden doors, and stepped into the Chicago evening air. The night air hit my face like cold water, sharp and clarifying. Behind me, through Morton's floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see my family's table dissolving into chaos. My father stood with his phone out, probably checking his credit card limits. My mother gestured frantically to the server. Fabiana had finally stopped recording, her face pale with genuine panic. My phone buzzed before I reached my car. Text from Fabiana, "What the hell is wrong with you?" Then my father, "Get back here right now or you're dead to this family." Then my mother, "How could you do this to us?" The messages arrived in rapid succession, each more desperate than the last. I silenced my phone and unlocked my Honda, settling into the familiar worn driver's seat. The drive home took 30 minutes through sparse evening traffic. My hands remained steady on the wheel, my breathing normal. I'd expected to feel guilty, anxious, panicked at what I'd done. Instead, I felt something unexpected. Lightness, like I'd been carrying a physical weight that had suddenly disappeared. For 6 years, every family interaction had been contaminated by financial expectation. Every phone call a potential request. Every dinner an opportunity for them to demonstrate expensive taste I was meant to fund. I'd lived in a constant state of defensive tension, always bracing for the next demand. That was over now. Whatever came next, at least that part was over. My phone continued buzzing throughout the drive. 17 missed calls by the time I parked in my apartment lot. The voicemail started. Contrite. My mother's voice. "Honey, I'm sure we can work this out. Just come back, please. The restaurant is threatening to call the police." Then angry. "My father, you've embarrassed this entire family. Your grandparents would be ashamed. You're selfish, and you always have been." I climbed the 3 flights to my apartment, unlocked the door, and stood in my small living room. The IKEA furniture I'd assembled myself. The television I'd saved 3 months to buy. The bookshelf filled with library sale finds. Everything in this space I'd acquired through my own effort, without help, without shortcuts. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Truly mine. Not leveraged, not borrowed, not funded through manipulation. My phone rang again. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. "Mr. Costa, this is Brian, manager at Morton's Steakhouse." His voice was professional but strained. "I have your parents here, and there seems to be some confusion about the bill. They're saying you agreed to pay, but left before settling the check." Behind his voice, I heard my father's raised voice demanding to speak with me. "No confusion," I replied calmly. "I paid for my Caesar salad and water, $20. The rest of the bill is their responsibility. They ordered those items without my knowledge or consent." Silence on the line, then. "I see. So, you're declining to pay the remaining balance." "Correct. I'm not responsible for purchases other adults made." More muffled conversation in the background. Then Brian again. "Your father is saying he doesn't have the means to pay the current bill. He's asking if we can split it into installments, or if you might reconsider helping them." The audacity almost made me laugh. They'd ordered nearly $2,000 of food and alcohol without securing a payment method, assuming my compliance was guaranteed. "That's between you and them," I said. "I have no relationship to their bill. They're adults who made purchasing decisions. Those decisions have consequences." Brian's sigh was audible. "All right, Mr. Costa. I'll let them know. We'll have to pursue other payment options." He hung up. 3 minutes later, my phone exploded. Multiple calls from my father, my mother, Fabiana. Text messages flooded in. "The restaurant is calling the police. They're going to press charges. You're destroying this family. How can you be so cruel? We raised you better than this." I opened my laptop and began documenting everything: the dinner invitation under false pretenses, the deliberate ordering of expensive items, the Florida condo demand for $20,000, the pattern of financial manipulation over 6 years. I listed every loan I'd given that became a gift. Every dinner I'd paid for under pressure. Every time they'd used family obligation as a weapon. The document grew to 4 pages, a comprehensive record of systematic financial exploitation. My phone rang from a number I recognized. Chicago Police Department. I answered. "Mr. Costa, this is Officer Jennifer Park. I'm at Morton's Steakhouse responding to a dispute over a bill. Can you explain your involvement?" I explained the situation calmly, factually. I'd paid for my own meal. My parents had ordered additional items without my approval or consent. I'd left after settling my portion. "So, you didn't agree to pay for their meals before they ordered?" "No. They invited me to what they called a family dinner. I had no knowledge they would order $1,800 of food and expect me to pay." Officer Park's tone shifted slightly. "And they're claiming you verbally agreed to treat them to dinner." "That's false. They can claim whatever they want, but I never agreed to pay for anything beyond my own meal." More conversation in the background. Then the restaurant is willing to let them leave if they sign a payment plan agreement for the outstanding balance. Is there anything else you want to add to the report? Just that this is part of a pattern of financial coercion by my parents. I'd like this documented in case they escalate. Officer Park assured me she'd note everything and ended the call. 90 minutes after I'd left Morton's, my father called from Fabiana's phone. His voice had moved beyond anger into something cold and final. You've made your choice. You've chosen money over family. Fine. Don't contact us again. Don't come to family events. Don't expect anything from us ever again. You're dead to me. Before I could respond, the line went dead. The next morning, I woke to find myself blocked on all family social media accounts. My mother's Facebook post, visible through a friend's screenshot she sent me, told a very different story than reality. Heartbroken today. Sometimes you raise children who grow up to abandon you in your time of need. Praying for our family during this difficult time. 47 sympathetic comments from relatives and family friends. Everyone who actually knew what happened, which was no one except my parents and sister, believed I was the villain. My Aunt Teresa called at 8 o'clock in the morning, her voice sharp with judgment. I can't believe what you did to your parents. Your mother is devastated. Absolutely devastated. They gave you everything and this is how you repay them. I tried to explain. She cut me off. I don't want to hear excuses. You humiliated them at a restaurant. The police were involved. The police, Leandro, over money, over a dinner bill. That's the kind of person you've become. 3 cousins unfriended me by noon. My uncle sent a text message calling me disgraceful. My grandmother, my father's mother, left a voicemail saying she was ashamed to share my blood. The family narrative was already set. The story already written. I was the ungrateful son who'd abandoned his loving parents over money. The years of manipulation, the constant demands, the financial exploitation, none of that fit the narrative, so it simply didn't exist in their version. I spent the day writing individual messages to family members explaining my perspective. Most went unanswered. A few responded with variations of, there are 2 sides to every story, but parents deserve respect. Only my cousin Raphael, the one my mother had mentioned as a bad example for not speaking to his own mother, called me back. Welcome to the club, he said without preamble. I've been where you are. It gets worse before it gets better, but it does get better. He explained his own experience with our family's toxic dynamics, how he'd been financially supporting his mother for years until he'd finally established boundaries. They'll paint you as the villain forever, Raphael warned. But the people who matter will eventually see the truth, and the ones who don't see it aren't worth having in your life anyway. That week, I focused on work, grateful for the distraction of deadlines and code reviews. My coworkers noticed nothing different, proof that the family drama existed in a completely separate compartment of my life. Wednesday brought a letter to my apartment, my mother's handwriting on the envelope. Inside, 3 pages of cursive explaining in detail how I'd betrayed the family, how ungrateful I was, how my actions had damaged their reputation and their mental health. The letter ended with an ultimatum: apologize publicly, reimburse them for the dinner and the emotional damages I'd caused, and contribute to the Florida condo fund, or remain cut off from the family permanently. I folded the letter and filed it with my documentation. No response needed. Friday evening, Fabiana showed up at my apartment door. I'd seen her car in the parking lot through my window and considered not answering, but curiosity won. She looked exhausted, makeup-free, wearing sweatpants instead of her usual carefully curated outfits. Can I come in? Without waiting for an answer, she pushed past me into my living room. She stood awkwardly by my couch, arms crossed defensively. Mom and Dad are a mess. Mom's been crying for days. Dad's barely speaking. The whole family thinks you're a monster. I know, I replied. I've received the messages. Fabiana's expression flickered with something that might have been guilt. Look, I'm not saying I totally disagree with what you did. They did order a lot without asking you first. And yeah, they've borrowed money from you before. This was the closest thing to validation I'd received from any family member. But you could have handled it differently. You could have talked to them privately instead of humiliating them in public. I've tried talking privately for 6 years, I said. Every conversation ends with me giving them money or being labeled selfish. There is no private conversation that works with them. Fabiana sat heavily on my couch. The restaurant made them sign a payment plan, $250 a month for 8 months. Dad is furious. They had to cancel their summer vacation to afford it. The irony wasn't lost on me. They'd planned a summer vacation while claiming they were too broke to pay their bills. That's what happens when you order $1,800 of food you can't afford, I said without sympathy. They made a choice. Now they're experiencing consequences. That's how adult life works. My sister looked at me like I'd become a stranger. You've changed. The Leandro I knew would never do something like this. The Leandro you knew was a doormat, I replied. He let people walk all over him because he was afraid of conflict. I'm done being that person. We sat in uncomfortable silence before Fabiana stood to leave. At the door, she turned back. They're never going to forgive you. You know this is permanent. I know, I said. And I'd made peace with that. 6 months later, I'm still blocked by most of my family. The narrative hasn't changed. I'm still the ungrateful son who abandoned his parents over money. Holiday invitations don't arrive. My name isn't mentioned at family gatherings, or so I'm told by Raphael, who's become my only remaining family contact besides one sympathetic aunt on my mother's side. But here's what has changed. My savings account now has $48,000. Without the constant financial drain of my parents' emergencies and expensive dinners, I've been able to save an additional $13,000 in 6 months. I'm 12 months away from having enough for a 20% down payment on a small house. My financial plan is working for the first time in my adult life, because I'm working toward my own goals instead of funding theirs. I changed my phone number and gave the new one only to people I trust. The constant barrage of guilt-inducing messages stopped. The knot of anxiety I used to feel when my phone rang disappeared. I sleep better. I focus better at work. I got a promotion 2 months ago, the real one, not the imaginary one my parents invented, and a 12% raise. Raphael and I have dinner monthly now. He introduced me to his wife, who shared her own story of escaping a financially manipulative family. Turns out there's an entire community of people who've had to choose between their own well-being and family expectations. We're not heartless. We're not selfish. We're just people who finally decided our lives mattered, too. My mother sent one final letter 3 months ago. It contained no apology, no acknowledgement of the years of financial manipulation, just more accusations of my selfishness and a reminder that parents deserve unconditional support from their children. I didn't respond. There's nothing to say. You can't reason with people who've rewritten history so thoroughly they believe their own fiction. Last week, I saw Fabiana at a grocery store. She pretended not to see me, turning her cart down a different aisle. Fine. I don't need a relationship with someone who enabled my parents' behavior and profited from it by never being held to the same expectations. Some family relationships aren't worth preserving. I bought my Caesar salad ingredients that day, the same salad I'd ordered at Morton's. I made it at home, ate it on my second-hand couch in my modest apartment, surrounded by furniture I'd bought with money I earned and kept. It tasted perfect, better than anything I'd ever eaten while suffocating under the weight of family obligation. People sometimes ask if I regret what I did. The answer is simple, not for a second. I regret waiting 6 years. I regret the $30,000 I'll never see again. I regret all the times I said yes when I should have said no. But walking out of that restaurant, leaving a $20 bill for my salad and water, refusing to fund their lifestyle one more time, that was the best decision I've made in my adult life. My parents got exactly what they ordered, an expensive meal and the consequences of their choices. I got something even better. My life back. Have you ever had to draw a hard line with family over money or expectations? What was the hardest part of that confrontation, and how did it change your life? Tell me your story in the comments below. I really want to hear what you went through.